Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the costumeco channel. And today, oh my gosh, I have three designers joining me to talk about the morning show. This is actually, I think, a first for me. I don't think I've had three designers at the same time. But before we get started, I just want to introduce them. So we have Sophie de Rakoff. Sophie, I'm not sure if I said your name correctly.
Pretty to Rakoff. You were very
Rakoff.
close.
Okay, yes.
Yes,
So,
very
so
close.
she's the costume designer of the morning show. And then we have Beth Lancaster. She is the
Hello.
co-costume designer. And
Mhm.
finally, we have Debra McGuire. She is the costume designer for Miss Aniston, Alex Levy. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For
And
having
whereabouts
us.
are you? Are you in California? Whereabouts are you right now?
We're at Sony Studios in beautiful Culver City, California.
And working on the latest season.
We
So that's so
are.
exciting. So anyway, what I've done, since I have a panel of you, I'm going to do a few general questions, and then we're going to do a few specific questions for you. So to start off, I just want to have you all introduce yourselves, and so that people know what it is that you do. Would you mind, you can go in whatever order you would like, just to understand your roles. Tell me a little bit about what you do. Sophie, did you want to start or?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm Sophie. I'm Sophie de Rakoff. I mean, I am the lead costume designer on the show. I mean, our roles are kind of amorphous and intertwined and all of these things, but that is, but that's where we stand.
Wonderful. Beth, did you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Beth Lancaster. I'm co-costume designer. And as Sophie said, we kind of work back and forth with each other and in communication with each other to design the show.
And then finally, we have Debra.
Hi, I'm Debra McGuire. I designed for Jennifer Aniston and have been doing it for a very long time. And really happy to be here in this unique situation where the three of us get to cohabitate, which is amazing and unusual.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. And of course, I'll send you all a copy of the recording so you can, have that to, refer to later if you need to. But now, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about what the process is like for all of you. So, it's a massive ensemble cast. It feels like it gets bigger every year. I'm not sure. I know you sub some people out and bring some new people in. So what's that look like on a day-to-day basis? Do you sort of like, divide and conquer? Do you sort of go to your little corners? Like, how does that all work?
Well, I mean, as you can see, I mean, really, this is kind of it. So we do all of those things. Yes, we have a very big ensemble cast. We've been working with them for multiple seasons. We've been working together for multiple seasons, and so we have certain characters that Beth and I kind of split up. We take certain characters, we focus on them, but within that we are always working together the same way that Debra designs for Jen, but the three of us are in constant communication, and it's just we're just like a costume village, for want of a better way of explaining it. So it's we have our own individual processes, but they are all deeply intersect and intertwined.
And I hope you don't have just that one little rack of clothes behind you to choose from.
That's pretty much our dry cleaning. Actually.
That's your dry cleaning. I'm sure you have a massive wardrobe that you can pull from.
Truly.
Well, Sophie, I wanted to start with you. I have a few questions for you. Now, sort of like how Debra has worked with Jennifer Aniston for many years. I know that you have a relationship with Reese Witherspoon that goes back to Legally Blonde. So what's that like for you? Like, and how has that relationship evolved for you over, the years?
I mean, ironically, this year will be basically our 25th anniversary, because it's the 25th anniversary of Legally Blonde next month, coming up shortly. And as with with all of these things, it's a relationship, and a relationship, you have to invest in it, you have to nurture it, it evolves over time, but we have always had a very easy, collaborative working experience, the two of us. And it was always easy to begin with. It continues to be easy. We have a shared language, we have a shared memories, we have shared references, and it's just there's a common vocabulary between us, I think, that is at the heart of our working relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And then my next question for you is that, but of course she, well, obviously she's one of the main leads, but then you also have this large ensemble that you have to take care of as well. So what is that like your process like for that, aside for just working with Reese?
I mean, the process with, it's all costume design. So it's whether you're designing one person, one character, the ensemble, everybody, it's about the work. And so the work is the work, and we all have our own, our own ways that we do things. But I think, what's unique about our show is the fact that there are three of us, and that partly, started because A, it's a very big show. But B, we were also given, the opportunity to be able to set the department up like this. I mean, Beth started in the first season as my ACD, as my assistant designer, but it became obvious that we had to split the workload up, and there was no, not to be proprietorial about it, because there was so much work to be done, and it had to be done so quickly. And, as like streaming and TV is its own beast that's very different from a movie. And so as the seasons progressed, Beth came on as my co-designer, because that's really what we're doing. Like we design together.
Mhm.
So, and with all things, it starts with the scripts, it starts with the episodes, it starts with the needs, the visualization, the imagination, the creativity, and then it's about the execution of those ideas as you move into the season.
Now, have you like, do you sort of, I interviewed Carlos Rosario about Shogun, and he was telling me, like, he's lovely. He was telling me they sort of like divided up the characters. Do you do that? You say, okay, I'm gonna take this list of characters, I'm gonna take this list of characters, and then you go away and come back together, or do you like to look at it all together as a team? What's your sort of process there?
It's a
Yeah,
whole.
yeah.
It's a holistic. I mean, Beth and I share an office. You know,
Mhm.
like we're,
So
we're
you can,
directly opposite each other.
Yep.
yeah.
So,
So you're near each other.
yeah,
Yes.
we're very near each other, and we just work in tandem. We take all our meetings together. We do all our conceptualizing together. We do most of the fittings together. Sometimes logistically we have to physically divide and conquer because of our schedule. So, but really everything, it's all done in tandem, because it's a whole.
Absolutely. Now, Deborah, I have a few specific questions for you to ask. Of course, as we know, you worked with Jennifer Aniston on Friends for many, many years. And so, what's that collaboration and so on? Sorry if I'm losing. Oh,
You're back.
I
You're
think
back.
I lost you. I'm having connectivity issues here. Sorry. Yeah. What's that process like working with Jennifer, like in doing fittings? Like, is it a team effort, the two of you? Do you bring her ideas, inspo pictures? Like, what's that process like for you?
So we're talking about 32 years. So that's a really long time.
That's longer than most marriages.
It's pretty long, I would say. But it's kind of an unspoken language. I mean, at the beginning of a season, I do a massive shopping and we bring it to her house. I have a very small team, which is a supervisor, her dresser, and a PA that help assist me in that process. And then at those fittings, if we have a script or a couple scripts at that time, I'll try to organize the fitting accordingly of work ideas, things she might wear in the teacup, she might wear going to the office, she might wear in her penthouse for sleeping. So there's sort of different categories of what she's going to wear. And then we'll walk through it as if she's walking through the department store with me to kind of pull out the things that are, that she is really attracted to, things that we might take out of the equation. And then we sort of pare it down and then we start to try things on. I also have our seamstress there, Elizabeth. She's there at all the fittings, and we try to get as much done as we can do in those big fittings. We don't have fittings as often as I would like to have them, because in between those big fittings, there's like smaller ones that'll happen in her trailer. But it's difficult to get those fittings because the day is so full and complicated for her in terms of memorizing lines and having a focus. And I really don't like to interrupt that focus. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll pull 2 or 3 outfits, and I will put them in the trailer. And then when she's done with hair and makeup, she can go through it. And then I'll come in and we'll figure out what it's going to be. The problem with that process and that system is I hate to leave these guys not knowing exactly what she's wearing, because in the way that we all design, it's very much color palette, texture oriented. And I'm very sensitive to the way they do that because it's also the way I do it when I design a whole show by myself. So we do a little dance, I think, because we have the relationship that we have. We find a way to sort of give clues about what those things might end up being in the color palette. We always manage to like survive this little storm, but it does make me uncomfortable a little bit because I want them to always know what's happening, but sometimes it's just not possible because I don't know what's happening. It's very, it just moves through. It has its own rhythm.
Well, and obviously, you know her sizes and everything like that, so you can. Because I actually did another interview with another designer who told me the actor wouldn't even try on their clothes at the fitting, so they had to wait until they got to set, and that was a little bit scary. But with obviously with Jennifer, you know her fit, and like I'm sure that you've got that nailed right down. And also, I was going to ask you about that regarding her silhouettes and her palette. Like, it seems like you tend to go with a particular palette or color for her most of the time anyway. So I'm just assuming, I could be wrong, that oftentimes that'll just work well with the rest of the cast. Like, I've got some pictures here of her.
Yes,
Let me
it's
show you.
true. But if we've got blacks and navies
Yes.
and cream and different shades of tan, and grays, we still don't want to step into the territory of the other characters. We want our characters to be as unique and individual as possible. And we're pretty lucky most of the time. I mean, it's funny. It makes us laugh because, it's not really worth stressing about. It always works out. And we can rationalize anything.
We can.
We can.
So.
And I suppose you could always, like, on set, just bring something just in case, like if you needed to put a jacket on her, or do you ever do that? Just bring a few items with you just in case, swap out a bag, or.
We love a backup. Always have a backup plan.
Or even for you, Beth and Sophie, like you say, maybe that's Jen's wearing this. Maybe we'll switch out something on one of the other cast members.
They're the best at that.
Yeah. That might be
I'm not
easier,
as
right?
Flexible in my world, but they are brilliant in making that happen.
Wonderful. So my final question for you, though, Debra, is now I believe that Jennifer likes to work with particular brands. I could be wrong there. Are there particular brands that she is an ambassador for, or that you prefer to use for her?
She's not really an ambassador for brands, no. I would say that in the luxury good market, we pretty much dip into every luxury good that you can imagine. With some exceptions of something that might come in from a new designer in London that I discover, or something that comes sort of from the outside. But for the most part, it's pretty standard luxury goods.
And do you occasionally ever do a wild card, like maybe a vintage piece or something that you've just even have in your own collection that you're like, this would be perfect for this?
Every so often I do that. I do have something of my own hanging in the trailer that is hanging there in case I find an opportunity to get it on her. But yeah, I do keep a few things in my back pocket.
I love that. I love that. I know a lot of designers are walking around with, like, their own collections that they'll sometimes, like, that they keep in their house and that they'll have to dip into because they just pick it up just in case. You never know, right?
Exactly. Well, it used to be like, in the old days when I was doing a lot more things, my husband would notice a lot that his suits and sports jackets were missing from the closet. So
Yes.
That was a common occurrence.
Yeah. Well, I come from the theater world, and we have an expression called beg, borrow, and steal. So there's there's the stealing sometimes happens. Maybe you give it back after, though. Uh,
Sometimes I forget.
or you forget. Yes, exactly. Now, for the whole team, I just want to ask you. Maybe we can go around. So, the show is very contemporary. It takes place in the present. I think we pretty much all know that as a viewer. But what I'm excited to know is, do you look, especially what's going on? I'm Canadian, but with what's going on in the United States right now, do you look at like real life journalists or anchors to get inspiration for the visual language of the show?
I mean, we did at the
Hmm.
beginning, which, by the way, let's be clear, the beginning was 7 years ago.
Wow,
So,
that's
like
crazy.
it's like
So crazy.
which
Wild.
in itself is insane to even
Mhm.
say that out loud.
Mhm.
But
Well,
I
it's
think,
it's prestige television. Prestige television takes a while to happen, right?
It does.
Yeah.
well, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it does,
Yeah, it
and
does.
we're currently shooting our 5th season. So I
Hmm.
think,
That's pretty
it's,
good
it's pretty good.
compared to
But
Game of Thrones or something like that, which
yes, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's all a
We're
lot of,
lucky to to have these 5 seasons. Absolutely.
yeah, it's been
Yeah.
great. It's been great. But but to talk to your original question, I think
Mhm.
the process at the beginning was very different because when we started our first season, we were building the world from the ground up. It was totally our world to create and to invent and to bring to life. And Beth and I did, a huge amount of research at that point. And the show was inspired by the Matt Lauer scandal and a book called Top of the Morning. So there was references. We dove really deeply into the politics. Particularly of female anchors and female journalists and newscasters, and then and that was a reference point for us. But we have always created our own characters. I mean, our characters are very, very distinct. We work very hard at that. And that's partly because we exist in a world where we spend a lot of our time in the newsroom. There's people have very specific jobs, but they all cross over. So there's producers, there's anchors, there's on-air journalists, there's behind the scenes journalists, there's writers, PA, all of these world, but it is all the same world. So that, and to keep the characters singular, that is something that you then have to, you take what you've learned and then you take the nuggets from it that work for you, and then you discard it and you just move on with what works for you, for us as the designers, and works for the world of the show.
Yeah. So I guess then the Steve Carell character was based on the Matt Lauer. Is that? I didn't even know that story.
I mean, I think so. Yeah, I mean,
Loosely.
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
very loosely.
Very loosely based.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, but yes,
There's a
but that was,
scandal.
we started the show at the height of the Me Too movement, and
Mhm.
that was, that was the impetus for the first season of the show, which is, it's a different show now. I mean, it's
Mhm.
7 years
Mhm.
later. We have a different showrunner. We have different writers. It has, it has morphed as the world has morphed, and
Mhm.
is again its own thing. And so, and we change within that. We morph within it.
Yeah, and you do touch on historical moments, though, like the wildfires, as an
Mhm.
example. So you do have those historical moments within it. So it's a nice sort of, those pieces throughout the series, giving it that little anchor to our world. And by the way, that whole thing, the Me Too movement, that Matt Lauer thing now just seems so precious considering what's going on in the world now. Like it just seems like,
Mhm.
oh, that was a big deal back then. That's crazy.
Mhm.
Now, but I just want to ask you, I know I already asked you a bit about the divide and conquer. I'm assuming you also have, assistant designers who also help with the workload, and shoppers, and just a massive team, I'm assuming. So how do you sort of, do you must rely on this team? Do you want to tell me a little bit about how that works in your day to day, like on set as well?
Yes, absolutely. So we have about 20 full-time team members, and that is not counting, as Deb described earlier, she has her own mini team to
Mhm.
work with her on Jen. So we have, Sophie and I have a fabulous assistant costume designer, Kim Johnson, who is just so great in terms of moving everything through the process that we start in our fittings. She guides everything through as it's getting altered. If we're building things, she keeps an eye on it. She'll help source fabric. We have our fantastic costume supervisor, Donna Casey. And then Deb has her own supervisor as well, Britt Cox. And those two really get in there and help break down the scripts, really help us keep on top of knowing where we need to have changes and having that conversation with us, and just laying out for us what needs to happen where. Great logistical brains. We also have our key, who is Deb. And Deb helps us really process through, get everything out of the closets that needs to go to set. She makes sure everything gets to our trailer, and just keeps us on track with that. We have our set costumers, who go and keep track of everything on set for us. We have 3 shoppers who we really need.
Mhm.
And rely. 4. We have 4 shoppers.
Wow.
4 full-time shoppers who, they just bring everything in. We take a look at who is this character, where are they shopping at, what's their socioeconomic status, okay, where realistically would they be shopping? And then those shoppers go out and get creative. They cue off of what we are asking for and our visual, our visual conversation with them, and then they go out and bring it to us. We have one full-time costumer, bless her heart, who just does returns for us because the volume of shopping is so high. She just works on getting everything back in time, whether it's online shopping or whether it's from the stores. And yes, who am I missing?
We have a tailor shop?
Yes, we have a tailor shop. So we have 2 full-time tailors, as well as a rotating cast of folks who come in to help us when our load is very high. And that's Daniel and Anne, and they're fantastic. They can make a suit fit like, they just really cap everything off and just make everything so precise and beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we have our fantastic PAs.
Mhm.
And we have 2 PAs. We have Amanda, and then Deb
I have Mims.
has Mims.
Oh, what a wonderful name.
Yes, and then we have our background team,
Right.
and they're almost their own separate department,
Yeah.
working to really kind of, just help us land the feeling of all of these locations that we go to. So that is the fabulous Patrick Guzzo and Anna Darnell, and then our extended team, including set costumers, and just everybody makes us look great, makes us get everything to camera on time, and we love our team.
Now,
Yeah.
it's interesting. You were mentioning about shopping the show. Do you ever custom build anything for the show? Bespoke items?
I mean, we do, and we,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, it's as needed. I mean, the pace at which we move is not conducive to custom building.
Mhm.
And particularly also a lot of the times we don't know our scripts until later. So we do it on an as needed basis. If there's something specific that we want that we can't find, quite often we'll work with outside design, like ateliers, like designers, and work with them to like in advance so that they can, custom make us pieces and the colors and things that we need to bring that in. And then we have special moments like this season. We have a musical within within the show that was a lot of that was a custom a custom build. But but we're a heavy shopping show. We are a contemporary show in a luxury world, and that is that is our wheelhouse, and we operate very happily within that.
So I was wondering if next I can just maybe dive a little bit more into some of the specific characters in the show. So obviously Stella Back, played by the fabulous Greta Lee. Season 4, her look is really amazing. And can you tell me, I read something about that it was influenced by her inner straight white guy. Like, I don't know what that means.
I think that was actually, Beth and I were just talking about that. We actually
Yeah.
think that was a quote that her character mentioned to somebody else.
Oh, okay.
It has
Yes.
nothing to do with her costumes.
Okay. So that was just
For
that.
us, she has no inner straight white guy.
Yeah,
That is not an inspiration for Stella.
Okay. So that might have been just something I think she said during the season.
I think it was literally a line from the script. I think it might have been
That's
she
so
was
funny.
explaining something to Corey, and it was like a quip. is
Yeah,
what
because
I
I think
think it
she felt a
is.
little bit like she was, had imposter syndrome or something.
Mhm.
Something like that. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so do you wanna tell me a little bit about her looks in this season? I'll see if I can find
Yeah.
some photos of
I
her
mean,
here.
I think, to back up
Mhm.
to our process, I think,
Yeah.
we all have similar process. We approach things in similar ways. How we get there can be different. But, when we first got the character of Stella, which I think was in season 2, there wasn't a lot on the page about her. We knew that she was an incoming female character. We knew she was going to have a trajectory. She was not supposed to have come from traditional media. So what we did was we built up our own backstory for her, who we thought Stella was. And, right from the very beginning, I was just like, this character, before Greta was even cast, I was like,
Mhm.
this is an opportunity for us to kind of explore a little bit more of New York street culture and take the idea that there's someone coming in from left field who's outside of the box, who doesn't fit into a corporate world, the way that the other characters do, and who was a little bit younger. And so that was kind of like a jumping off
Yeah.
point for an inner life that we built for Stella's character, which was that we knew that she come from Stanford. We knew she came from tech. We thought she had tattoos. We
Mm.
thought she used to, like be part of like the EDM, the underground dance movement. And all of these things came together was how we started to build out her character visually. And then when we got Greta and when Greta joined the cast and we realized that we had someone who could wear anything and make
Oh yeah.
anything believable, when you have an actor like that,
Mhm.
you can then keep pushing the envelope when it, within the bounds of the character. So, so once we figured out very, very quickly that Greta can wear anything, that she can inhabit it. She has a very editorial way of moving. She understands clothes, she understands fashion in a very, she doesn't have to verbalize it. It's just instinctive to her, that we were then able to keep pushing and keep molding and define her character. And as her character moved up the ranks of the show, we were then able to hone in like that street style and make it more sophisticated, take away the elements, like we used a lot of sneakers and we used,
Yes.
athletic wear, for the previous seasons. And then in season 4, we were like, with no more sneakers, no more hoodies, those things are gone. We are then recreating her silhouette in a more sophisticated way that was befitting of her, of her new role within the company, but still keeping that very singular, edgy style that no one on the show had.
There's an
Um,
interesting
oh,
arc,
sorry,
I
good.
would say, to how she evolved on camera as well, starting from, the fleecier
Mm-hmm.
fabrics and the more kind of
They're almost cozy.
lower grade cottons and things
Mhm.
like that in the earlier seasons, where she's coming from supposedly Silicon Valley. I think some
Mm-hmm.
experiences there in tech.
Yeah.
And then she, in a sense, gets there's this marrying of that aesthetic in later seasons with the finer fabrics and the finer wools and the finer silks of some of our other characters at TMS. So
Right.
she, in a sense, kind of you know, ends up at a point where she's absorbed some of that from them with her own kind of perspective, coming as an outsider.
Yeah. And, and then, and talking about collaboration, the other part of this that we haven't talked about is, how closely we work with the production designers on the show. So, for example, like some of those pictures that were flashing
Yeah.
up, that's Stella in her office. And so
Mhm.
we know what her office is. So, like, we know that's the backdrop, we know the palette of the office. And then, that these scenes are going to take place. So then you can when you're in the fitting and you're putting the outfit together, you have the silhouettes and you know what's going to work within that environment. And again, you look at Greta, you look at someone like that, and that, that could be an editorial shoot, because all of these things, you lock into it season after season, and you start to be able to instinctively create these characters visually and know also what will work for camera as much as what will work for the individual, the character. And I think those are things that we are able to hone in on this show, partly because of we shoot so much on the stage and we work so closely with the other departments.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, like, obviously with hair and makeup, like, she oftentimes has that very sleek sort of center part style. And then so the jewelry and her makeup and her fashion tie in very all, it's very cohesive and beautiful. Um, and obviously I'm very sad to see her go, although you never know, she might come back. That was a
We
spoiler,
live in
maybe.
hope.
Well, next, of course, I want to speak about Mia, who is played by Karen Pittman. So, at one point she leaves UBN, and then because she's denied the head of news that actually she was promised that by Stella. So, can you tell me a little bit about that shift in her look? Like, for instance, I remember I really noticed this outfit. Let's see if I can find it. Her pink one that she wore for the interview. Let's see if I can find it. There's Mia here. I think this is before her shift, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So this is, I think, this looks like after the interview. This is, I
Yeah.
think, the day of the interview.
That interview happens all in that same day. What you're
Yeah.
seeing there. So that's episode 3, and this was something that was specifically written into the script that gave us, something specifically to head towards. Which quite often we don't have that, but this was very clear. It was written into the script that in that episode, in which where she's wearing the pink, she's walking to work. She's, it's 3 a.m. because everyone goes to work at 3 a.m. in our show. She stops in the window of Bergdorf. She sees an outfit in there, which, it's like a breakfast at Tiffany's moment, but it symbolizes something to her. It symbolizes the next step, and it's reminiscent of, other moments in the show. And so what this leads into, and you're right, so she goes and she has this interview, she does not get the job, and then she has a big switch, there's a big pivot in her trajectory. So this is before, and this is intentional, like the soft colors, the softer fabrics, the longer hair, she's in a flowing skirt. It's a much softer silhouette, so that when she does pivot, and then when there's an intentional change, that it's a very specific difference, but it's still the same character. She's still the same woman, she still has the same, there's still the same intention, but this is a very nuanced version, intentionally nuanced version of who she is now projecting to the world. So that was obviously, done with the color red, which is a color that we use very sparingly in the show and for very specific moments. It started in the first season when Jen wore the Valentino red jumpsuit and coat for when she plucks Bradley out of obscurity and, and brings her into the morning show. And ever since then, we use this color like only for moments of like utmost importance. We don't use it elsewhere in the show, and that's always been intentional for these multiple seasons. So it was intentional to put her in this color. This was a custom suit that we custom made with Lafayette 148. That's a American female owned clothing company that we work with a lot. They're very, very good partners to us on the show. And and also in conjunction with Karen. I mean, Karen has, great instincts about her character. She has a lot of insight. She has a lot to say. She's completely involved in the process in the room, in the fitting room, and even before we even get to the fittings. So, all of these things in terms of process, like this is a moment where all of these things intersect and come together.
Yeah, and even like I was noticing that, for instance, this silhouette is much more like hiding her body, kind of not, it's soft. It's almost like she wants to disappear. And I'm not quite sure. Whereas this one is like a strong, I would call it a power suit. She's like
1,000%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like look,
I mean,
and much more close to the body, almost hourglass like. So
yeah,
I mean, I don't know that she doesn't. I love this look, by the way. This is
Fabulous.
so cute.
I mean, Karen/Mia is always body conscious. Like she's not someone, she's not someone who hides her light, and she doesn't, but but it was intentional that she was much softer in that third episode, though she always has a shape. Like Mia always has a waist, she always has a shoulder, she wears a lot of skirts, she's not embracing, like the full idea of like men's tailoring. It's like, it's all kind of codified for her, I think.
But there is a bit of there's a before and an after in our previous seasons. You know, she all starts in a lot of denim and a lot of silk shirts and things like that when we meet her in season 1. And then it sort of evolves through adding in, you know, a lot of shirtwaist dresses, that sort of thing. When we hit her in season 4, episode 3, and we see the very soft and the pink. And then after her red suiting moment, you do see a lot. We did add in some suits, which was not something she wore previous to that moment. It's still very soft and feminine in its execution.
Right.
But there is a before and an after.
Well, yeah, because also she had a new job, you know, back to our point about trying to keep things singular. And as these characters go up and down the corporate ladder, how they as characters present to the world also changes. So, you know, post episode 5, you know, she's now Chris's producer. So she is now a producer, whereas before she had been a news producer. She'd been in support of, but this time she's directly aligned with the talent. So back to your original thought, you know, about research and all of these things, like this is where all of that stuff starts to kind of like weave in and out on itself.
Yeah, there's a lot of going up and down the peg. People will be at the top of the peg and just like slide right down the pole,
Right.
and then you know, try to climb like
Snakes and
Corey,
ladders.
like Corey's trying to. He's trying to grapple his way back up there. So the next one I wanted to talk about of the female characters is Celine Dumont. So, you know, she comes from wealth and privilege, unlike some of the other characters who've had to earn their way, you know, to that. So she's at the height of fashion, and everything she wears always feels very couture. So did you want to tell me a little bit about her? This is my favorite from this season, this one here. Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
It's
that was
insane.
the best. We were so pleased with ourselves.
It's just stunning.
Tell you. I mean,
So good.
so this was our introduction to the character, and in the script, she was coming from a party in the Hamptons, and again, like you get Marion Cotillard turning up on your doorstep.
Oh.
You know, I mean, it's just there for you to screw up, basically. You know, it's one of the faces of Chanel and one of the great actresses and beauties of our time. But this was, you know, it was right from the very beginning. I can't remember where I'd seen it or it came from, but I was like, I knew that there was a transparent trench out there somewhere. I didn't know it existed in that color. And then back to our team. So we have a shopper called Michi, who we've all worked with for a million years, who's phenomenal. And Michi was sent out to go and find this trench. And what she found it in this nude, which we didn't know existed. And so we built the outfit around this.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
And so that was kind of how it started. And we have the luxury of having a budget, and, you know, we are able to find the pieces that we want. And, you know, if we're good with our budget, we're able to, you know, spend the money to find what we want. And that was a Bottega dress, you know, a Dolce trench. We did a tie-in with Bulgari and David German so that we could have that level of jewelry that we needed that we don't normally use on the show. You know, that we were able to, you know, to borrow that for the season so that we could build this idea of wealth and European luxury with, you know, and that's where we ended up. We were quite pleased.
By the way, and I love that this photo actually, you don't see her shoes, but you see most of the outfit. Like a lot of the pictures are oftentimes cropped above the waist. So it's really nice to have a photo of her, you know, in the full look. And then, you know, so here's some of her just more suit, you know, sort of work day sort of outfits that she has
and
as well.
Luckily, you know, Mimi Leda, who's our primary director, like Mimi loves the shoe shop. So quite often she'll be like, I'm going to start on the shoes. And we'll be like, thank God, now we know we're going to see it head to toe. Because to your point, it's always, that was great. That's a Dries Van Noten suit, which was just, you know, spectacular on her. That was a really, really lovely look on her.
For sure. And then but you know, and the other thing I was going to say is the men, they oftentimes don't get much attention. I mean, I notice them. But the, you know, fashion wise, they don't get as much attention, but the men in the show obviously are beautifully dressed. So like, you know, Chip and Corey and Yanko and Paul all have beautiful looks. The one that, of course, Corey's my favorite. I don't know if that's a terrible thing to be saying. I mean, I've been watching him for many years. So he's, you know, here's Yanko actually. And let me just pull some here of him. Do you want to tell us? And of course, Miles this season, his stuff is extremely luxurious.
Mm-hmm.
With Alex.
Yeah, the interesting thing with working with the men is that whereas in women's wear, there's a lot of differentiation, styling, that is typically where all the focus goes when you're talking about clothing. With men and our challenge is, it's the workplace. Everybody's wearing a suit, so trying to find the tiny little variations within the type of suiting, the type of separates that these guys would have in order to keep them looking like their own selves and keep them looking like they shop in different spots. That's always our challenge. And it was so lovely and refreshing to have Aaron as well, because he comes from a different spot from the art world, unlike so many of our other characters who are much more in that corporate spot. So Aaron's looks could really, give a little bit of perspective in a way that some of our other guys don't get to have.
Absolutely. Oh, here's Corey. This is just a sort of a casual look for Corey.
I mean, the world's beloved Corey.
Yeah. Corey
There he
wears a
is.
uniform, we always say.
Yeah.
It has its variations, but within that, there's a pattern.
And it was interesting, I think, one of the things that we always talk about in the very first season, when we were just getting introduced to the actors, when we were figuring out, our cast and all of these things, we had a conversation with Mark Duplass on the phone before we even met him. And, Mark is a director, a producer, an actor, all of these things. He's extremely well versed in every aspect of filmmaking. And it was Mark who said to us, he said, you're going to have a really big ensemble cast. He was basically like, pick me a signature look and a color, because I want you to, if we've got 12 people on the screen, it's good for the audience to know who they're looking at. So if they can recognize the character by their silhouette and their palette, he was basically like, that's of interest to me, because I want the audience to be able to pick Chip out in a lineup, basically. And that was something that I think really stuck with both Beth and I, and that we used as a touchstone all the way through to like keep guiding us back to the idea of like signature palettes, signature silhouettes, and very singular looks for each of the characters. Like we worked really, really hard in the first season to differentiate every single character, so that as we moved forward, though we didn't know we were going to be moving forward for 5 seasons.
No, we did not.
But as we moved forward, we were able to, we knew exactly who they were. So, so we were then able to then build out all these other characters that came in and give them their own life and their own look in that same way, because everyone else who come before them was so clearly defined.
Oh, by the way, I just wanted to point out, I love this trench that Mia's wearing here.
Is that the butter yellow one? Yeah, that was.
It's almost like she's almost wearing it like a dress, like a wrap dress. I love. And then, I'm actually, now that you mentioned this about Chip, like it looks like he wears like a less structured sort of jacket. Like it doesn't look like it looks like a soft tailoring. Is that correct?
Yeah. And we sort of landed with Chip on, the earth tones, the browns, the tans. You'll see his tan suit is particularly his signature in the early seasons.
Yes.
And then he kind of evolves. He goes away from TMS. He comes back to partner with Alex. And so he goes into a little bit more of a kind of casual version where he's not wearing his suiting in season 4. But he retains the same colors, so that we can still readily identify him.
Yeah.
And I think, something that we should probably mention in returns to process, because I think we haven't, in like our internal process as a team, like Beth and I we do a lot with boards. Like when we have new characters or shifts and things, like we have a visual language for our shoppers, for the directors, it's for all of these things, because obviously if I say a red suit to you, that doesn't mean you're going to think of like Mia's red suit, we've created our own visual language within the show. And to help all of us get to where we need to go, we do a lot of visual references and we do a lot of boarding, so that everybody is on the same page. Because if you've got 24 hours to shop a character, like one person's interpretation is not the same as another person's. we put a lot of thought into like the beginning process, even before the actors are cast, to try so that we know what direction we're heading in,
Yeah.
so that it can be implemented.
And Sophie and I work really hard. You know, we're not just pulling from, say, here's a shot off the Nordstrom website. We try to go and find, you know, whether it's fashion shoots, you know, love going to people's Instagrams or certain Instagrams to take a look and see how the real person who would be in that circumstance presents themselves.
Oh,
You know, to
yes.
kind of get more
Mhm.
of the vibe in addition to
Right.
just
Mhm.
it's a sheath dress or it's a navy suit. It sort of helps to guide
Yeah.
a bit of creativity within
Yeah.
that world.
We do a lot of vibing that way, and whether it's, you know, like an art book or like whatever, you know, we all have different references that we pull from, which is why I think we're such a great
Mhm.
team, because you bring all of these different references together,
Mhm.
and then you come up with something special.
Yeah, and I didn't mention Ben, I don't think either. He's I
Right.
love I've got a couple of pictures here of him. By the way, there's one look I've noticed with men lately is they'll wear off, like here he's wearing a structured shirt, but I kind of like this soft shirt, like a golf shirt, or sometimes even I've noticed on red carpets, guys just wearing even like a singlet or something under a blazer. So that's sort of a hot thing now. So it's sort of fun to be able to find a different, or a turtleneck, you know, find something that's a little bit different. So I kind of feel for his character. He's got quite the challenge this past season. Because no one wants him coming in, like no one wants him there. So
Right.
he's got to find a way to stand out in some way, right? But we're running out of time. This is terrible. So before we leave, first off, I want to thank you all so much for joining me to talk about this wonderful show and this latest season. But I just wanted to touch on, are you allowed to tell me anything about season 5? It sounds like you're in the process of working on it. Like, even you don't have to tell me any of the story, but are you allowed to tell me where you're at with shooting or prepping?
We're about halfway through.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. My
Yeah.
gosh.
I mean,
Okay.
no, we can't tell you anything because, you know, we're
No,
not
of
allowed
course
to talk
not.
about.
I wouldn't expect you to. But and you've brought the same team back. It sounds like you've got a wonderful, like, well-oiled machine happening there. So
We do.
is there
Mhm.
anything that you're
grateful.
particularly excited costume-wise that you're working on? You don't have to tell me what it is, but is there
Debra,
anything
do
you're
you
like,
have anything?
is there anything like you're like,
I would just like to say that where I thought I was going with this season ended up going in the opposite direction.
really?
You're just gonna have to.
Oh,
figure that out.
okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I had this one picture here. I didn't get to show this one here. This is a fabulous. I know this is completely out of. I thought I'd
From the
pull this one up
opera.
of
Yeah,
me
that was fun.
and Alex.
So good.
Yes.
So good.
And actually, because here Mia's a little bit sexy, you know, she's so and Alex is wearing this beautiful like plunge style dress, which is just looks so great on Jen Aniston. But anyway, well, I want to thank you all so much. Now, are you on Instagram? Are you on social media? Do you share your pictures out for viewers to, because I know some of the costume designers I've interviewed, they'll post photos. Can they find you? And if so, can I add that to our
we're not the most sherry on social media of all of your interviews, probably.
Yeah.
That's so funny because people are always like, there's this thing called Shop My TV. I think it's called Shop My TV. And I've talked to some designers and they say these people will hound them like, where'd you get that? You know, and it's like, oh my gosh. So I know some people, some designers do share some of their behind the scenes. But anyway, I will add your Instagrams into the chat. And then that way, if anyone wants to check you out and wants to follow you, they can go there. But highly recommend watching. All of the seasons are out on Apple.
Yeah.
So, go back if you haven't seen the whole season. It's all out. I actually kind of, because some of the shows, they only come out weekly, so you have to wait each week. But I think in this case, I did binge watch the whole season. That's how I did it. I kind of like doing
It's
that.
the way to do it.
It's so fun to do it that way. Well, anyway, I want to thank you, all three of you, so much for being here and spending time with me. It's been such a treat to have all of you. And, the Emmys are coming up, so I'm, wishing all of you the best of luck. So
Thank
Sophie, Beth, and
you.
Debra, thanks for joining me today. And
Thank
for
you
everyone,
so much.
Thank
it was
you
so
for having
fun. Yeah. And for everyone who's watching, thanks again. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to end the recording.
Bye.
Okay.